So this is 5 Minutes with Richard Huntington, Director of Strategy at Saatchi and Saatchi. Hi Richard.
Mark?
Can you give me a quick summary of your career to date?
Yeah, I mean, if you can call it a career, it seems very accidental to me. I decided I've been doing this quite a long time. I decided I wanted to get into advertising third year at university. Applied for the milk round, complete fucking disaster.
What university?
Cambridge.
And what year?
Jeepers. So I graduated in 1989. Let's go 1989. and I did all that kind of milk round. I don't think that still happens, but that milk round stuff. Applied to loads of agencies, got into none. Got rejected by here. Fucking hell. I've still got the letter behind
it's
my
funny you should say
desk.
that. So when I was 14 and I was at school and they said, right, you need to get 1 week's work experience somewhere. Being Jewish, my mum and dad said, right, we know this Jewish company called Saatchi and Saatchi advertising, you should send them a letter. So I sent them a letter saying, can I have 1 week's work experience? And I got a letter back saying no.
No.
I've got this letter, to this day I've got this letter and I really want to kind of just show Maurice Saatchi and say, look, this is the letter, this is rejection and this is what I've done.
Well, I've still got that letter. I've got my letter from Abbott Mead. I ended up on the board of Abbott Mead and go, here's my letter saying we wish you all the best in your career. Anyway, so that was a disaster. And then what happened was I got into, I responded, there was an ad in Media Guardian, must have been about September 1989, saying, by the year 2000, 90% of direct marketing will be direct marketing. And I thought, that sounds like a good idea. So I applied to a direct marketing agency to get on their graduate thing and got in. It's an agency that was completely sort of pointless and irrelevant and collapsed as soon as the recession bit around about 1990. But I worked with a guy called Chris Barraclough, who's the creative director, and Simon Hall, who's the managing director. And they went off to set up an agency called Barraclough Hall, Woolston Gray, which is now Proximity. And I went with them because I was incredibly cheap, incredibly young, and I could put IKEA furniture together. And so we set that up. And then they kind of twigged about 3 years in that I was really very, very, very bad account handler, owing largely to my inability to make difficult phone calls, which seems to be one of the great skills of an account handler. And so they sent me to Abbott Mead, which just acquired by Barraclough Hall.
Yeah.
This is about 1993. Yeah, 93. They said, go off and learn about planning for 6 months and come back and tell us what it's all about. And I went, okay, fine. And then I got to Abbott Mead and went, this is fucking amazing.
Did they pay you to go and do that?
They paid me my salary. I rather cheekily asked for a raise before I went, which I can't believe why I did that. And they were absolutely right saying, no, fuck off. If you come back, you can have some more money. So I went off and went to Abbott Mead. And totally fell in love with it. I think what I'd started to see in direct marketing is there were some really interesting questions being asked, but they weren't being asked to the direct marketing agencies. They were being asked to the advertising agencies, and I started to go, well, I want to answer those questions, so I need to be in an advertising agency. And so I went to be a planner at Abbott Mead. I thought it was, where I would die. I thought it was an Abbott Mead man and boy, and then I realised it wasn't quite that middle class. Despite appearances. So I got a chance to go to HHCL in its absolute fucking heyday, 97, I was 30. Went to HHCL to work on Tango, which was an amazing experience. Did loads and loads of things there, stayed there for 10 years because I drank the cultural Kool-Aid, and I adored it and I thought it was the future of advertising. I still sort of in a way think it is. We can maybe come back to this, but I mean the things that we were doing there 15 years ago, the rest of the industry still is struggling to get its head around. And then that all collapsed in 2007, and I was one of the last people to switch the lights off at HHCL, which was a very sad moment. Spent 9 months, thanks to Martin Sorrell's generosity, kind of just hanging out, doing a bit of consultancy. And then I got a job when Robert Senior arrived here and said, right, I'm going to restore Saatchi's birthright, and an agency that frankly I wouldn't have touched with a shitty stick up until that point. Robert arrived and transformed everything. I came on board, as did Paul Silburn, and I think we started here to create an agency that is as brilliant as it once was, and may yet change the London advertising industry, or perhaps global advertising industry. That's my short plan. And there's loads of lessons out of that, incidentally, from, you know, whenever people ask me how to get into advertising, I kind of always say, you know, start anywhere, but never get stuck. You know, I genuinely believe it doesn't matter what marketing discipline or comms discipline it is, but if it isn't the right one for you, just don't get stuck there, move on. The thing about tenacity I think is really, really important, and I also think that in this business you need breaks, and you need to find out how to get yourself, or to be in a position. You know, I got so many breaks, and a lot of them were lucky. They weren't necessarily, that whole thing about going to be a planner was a break that was given to me. I didn't even go out looking for it. So you know, you have to try it, because this industry is about breaks.
When I spoke to Rory Sutherland a few days ago, he said that how he got to where he is today, he just waited for loads of people to retire, move on, or just kind of pass away, and that's how he got lucky getting where he got to. It was quite fun.
Fair enough, yep.
How would you describe the creative industry in 3 words?
One of the single most powerful and interesting commercial tools that's available to global or British companies and brands, and often overlooked and misunderstood. Something we do uniquely well in this country and in this city, but have slightly lost the mantle. I think if you'd said to anybody in British advertising 10 years ago, we would look to the US for the agencies we love the most and the work we love the most, they would have pissed themselves laughing. And still, something 20 years on, I absolutely adore, and seems to me like a far better decision than any of those other options that were on the table when I left college.
So in 3 words, how would you sum it up?
Okay, sorry, I fucking missed the brief. 3 words. The future, challenged, exciting.
For you, what's the best thing about agency life?
The people, and that sounds a really glib thing, but what's sort of accidentally happened in advertising is that we've created an industry that's uniquely populated by incredibly clever and creative and talented people that kind of flock to the business. And so basically you get to hang out all day with brilliant people. And I look at other sectors and think, you know, basically you have to hang out all day with arseholes. And there are 1 or 2 arseholes, but by and large this is just that it is the people. You meet extraordinary human beings. I have to say, agency side, I still get a real thrill out of, you know, a day that involves mobile phones, sausages, male testicular cancer, beer. You know, the sort of eclecticism of our lives is brilliant.
Who inspires you?
A lot of my inspiration, in a sense, comes from heroes of the past. So my big all-time hero is George Orwell. Because of his, really because of his writing, and he's like in my head constantly when I'm doing stuff, reminding me about, you know, the value of simplicity, and because, you know, he's self-taught writer. So Julian Cope, because I think he's just a real example of bringing unusual and what I call weird shit kind of perspective to things, and James Dyson, because he's the only real entrepreneur in this country. And I love the fact he hates brands. I think he's entirely wrong about that. We need to have a conversation one day. And I love his quote that NPD isn't NPD unless you can patent the result. Most companies and most of the client community could learn something about it when they're trolling out the latest crap piece of NPD they've brought to the market.
What are your interests outside of work?
To Do you know, there's a very sad side of this, which is that there aren't that many. I mean, kind of blogging's a big thing for me, and has been a big thing for me, and very important to me in my life, for some sort of kind of weird, fucked up reasons, but it is largely blogging about brands and planning and advertising and shit. So I don't have that many interests, apart from Julian Cope, George Orwell and James Dyson. Okay.
If you weren't in the advertising industry, what do you think you'd be doing?
I really, really wanted to be an architect. And I used to think, oh well, Norman Foster only started becoming an architect when he's 30, so I could do that. And then I'll go, no, that's a long time ago in my life. I absolutely would love to have been an actor. I'd love to present TV, that sort of stuff. I think so much of our jobs now are in performance, as much as it's in the sort of problem solving performance.
Who's the most creative person you've ever had the pleasure of working with?
In the industry, in a very genuine sense, I think someone like Paul Silburn, who I work with now, because I think the creatives that I've most loved working with, the people where you've got a pretty good brief and it's kind of tight and clear, and they're capable of bringing back solutions that are, you kind of go, what the fuck, where the hell did that come from? I genuinely like that process. He's one of the best people I've ever worked with. The biggest kind of legend person I worked with was David Abbott. I think I'm really lucky to have had that opportunity, because he's kind of one of the last, I think probably Hegarty's the last of the people that bridged the world of DDB in the 60s and that London ad scene and the present day. And the other person, without a doubt, I know these are all creatives, but who is genuinely probably the most creative person if you take every facet of his life and output, is Steve Henry. And he's migrating, I notice, slightly from almost in the wilderness post HHCL into a bit of a legend and luminary.
How about in planning? Who inspires you in the planning kind of sector?
I think probably the person I find most inspiring, but I'm not like him at all, and he's just a good sort of alter ego-y kind of voice, is Richard Story. NMA and Saatchi. I genuinely feel that there are sort of planning luminaries out there, who everybody knows about, partly because of the whole fucking blogging thing. So Richard isn't one of them, and I think his utter dedication to boiling it all down to one thing, his ruthlessness, I just adore it. And for me, his brief for the Metropolitan Police, which simply said, make 999 out of 1,000 people know they could never be a police officer, is a piece of planning genius. That said, I overlapped for a short period of time at HHCL with Adam Lurie, and I think he's established a style of planning and a centrality of planning which is hard to beat, and his dedication to radicalism is, because I think that ability to say, I'm going to solve this problem, I'm going to go right to the root cause and solve it, when most of our industry tries to solve problems superficially, is still very powerful for me. And I'm sure that younger people don't even know who Adam Lurie was, which is a great shame.
With the current climate and economy not looking very positive, have you ever had the threat of redundancy before?
I have had the threat of redundancy, and in fact I was made redundant from WPP. I mean, the thing was, I was offered, when we closed down HHCL, I was offered to go to Grey, which is part of WPP, to be the strategy director, and it was sort of like, Grey or lots of cash, so I took the lots of cash, which is why I could spend 9 months not working, 2007. At the time, I felt fucking cocky and confident and thought I'd bring redundancy on because I'm on a 6-month contract and I'll get a job no problem. I think I'd be inclined to be slightly less cocky right now. Though I hope this climate doesn't lead people to play safe with their careers.
What advice would you give to people that are potentially facing the threat of redundancy? At all levels, really, from junior.
At all levels, and we're seeing it right across the board. In the client community as well right now. I think that's it's starting to get a little bit scary out there. It's a bit late, I'm afraid. I mean, I think the most powerful thing you can have is your network. You need to have built your network up and hope you weren't an arsehole. I think that this is not a climate in which the cunts will survive, and you can use that strategy to get ahead when the times are good. But I think the fact that you were decent to people, you were good and you were decent, will matter a hell of a lot. That's not something you can do much about right now.
So if you've got a personal brand and a good reputation and a good network, just rely on that and rely on it.
Yeah, and I can't. When you're getting into the industry, I think I can say things like tenacity and start anywhere, and I think further on it is a genuinely scary time, and it may well be that our industry is smaller in the future.
It might be for the better because the quality will be there.
Maybe. Yeah.
What's the best brand you've ever worked on?
Oh, do you know what? The thing that came right into my head, because if I think about it, I wouldn't say this. It was Iceland frozen foods. I think another piece of advice I'd give, two things is, as a planner, so work, and maybe it's true for creators and suits, but don't follow an agency brand or a client brand, follow a master practitioner. So find somebody to apprentice yourself to. And then work on unassuming or unlikely brands. Do you want to be the planner, creative or suit that makes the 37th best Nike commercial, or Nike campaign, or Nike app, or Nike, Run London thingy, or do you want to make a name for yourself? And I had a significant break when I worked. We picked up Iceland as a brand consultancy first, and then as an advertising account at HHCL about 1998, and I got a hell of a lot of stuff done on that. So I think that in a way, and the opportunity to be all across their business, work with HR, work with buying, work with packaging, work with operations, to see for the first time the potency of brand and brand thinking, brand ideas at the heart of a business change the way I think what I think is important about what we do. I still love making front end, get out there, T-Mobile roll wedding, only blow the fucking doors off kind of communications and content. But since that moment, I've loved the engineering of brands at a fundamental level.
Are you more passionate about a particular type of media, or are you happy to plan across kind of multiple platforms?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'm not suggesting that I'm brilliantly good.
Where would you say your strengths are?
My strengths are in brand planning. And I have a go periodically at what I call micro planning, which is very unfair because somebody's got to do it. But the sort of ranking celebrities according to their social media reach in order that we cast Professor Green in the next Doritos campaign is fine. Somebody's got to do it. But I'd rather solve fundamental problems, and I see that being media agnostic, although the means by which you then engage with people and the relationship you build and engaging with consumers is changing all the time. I think though, if we can understand that's answering the big questions is what we do eternally, then it's easy to get your head around what's going on.
Okay, one last question before we move on to a quick fire round. What's your favourite advertising campaign of all time?
I think probably Campaign slaggable snacks for pot noodle. I think it's a genius insight about pot noodle being the culinary equivalent of a wank. I think it was really, really exciting, daring stuff to do. I fucking love that single ad. I go Dunlop tested for the unexpected by Tom and Walt at Abermead in around about 94. Just with Tony K directing, Lou Reed soundtrack. It's perfect, still perfect.
It's nice to get different answers like that. Okay, fine. Let's move on to a quick fire round. Can lion or D&AD pencil?
Lion, which is new. I think lions have changed. We feel very differently about can than we did 10 years ago. Lion.
Digital design or graphic design?
Graphic design.
Creatives or suits?
Creatives.
Interesting, okay. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Degree or no degree?
Degree.
Retained work or pitch work?
Pitch work.
Web or mobile?
Mobile.
Independent agencies or networked agencies?
Advice independent agencies.
Okay. Outsourced production or on-site production?
Outsourced production.
Miami Ad School or Hyper Island?
Hyper Island.
Watford or Bucks?
Watford.
And lastly, Don Draper or Roger Sterling?
Don Draper. Don Draper is a planner, not a creator. I am the legacy of Don Draper.
Don Draper got lucky, I think. Cool, thanks very much.